Hey everybody, Michael Tracy here. There is a new wrinkle in the story regarding the firing of Preet Bharara, who was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York up until yesterday. The new wrinkle is that apparently a personal phone call from Trump by way of Trump's personal assistant was placed to Bharara, and I've been told that I might be mispronouncing his surname. It could be Bharara or Bharara. I don't know. I think either way is pretty tenable, but Bharara, I guess, is what I'll try to go with from here on out. On Thursday, so the day before, a directive was handed down by Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, for all remaining Obama-era U.S. attorneys to tender their resignations. Trump placed a personal phone call to Bharara, and this probably, and the assumption is that this phone call stemmed from the meeting that Bharara and Trump had in November when Trump was the president-elect, and when Trump reportedly provided Bharara with assurance that he would request that Bharara remain on the job. And remember, as I mentioned yesterday, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York is probably among the most powerful law enforcement positions in the entire country. It has jurisdiction over Wall Street, it has jurisdiction over Manhattan and so on and so forth, and also Westchester and the Bronx. So there are just a huge array of cases that a U.S. attorney might have from that district might have jurisdiction over, and Bharara made the most of his tenure there in prosecuting corrupt officials from both parties. And as I mentioned in my video last night, those prominently include Dean Skelos, who was the majority leader of the state Senate and was a Republican, and also Shelley, who was the leader of the New York State Assembly for many years. So Bharara really did burnish his bipartisan credentials, and a lot of people wanted him to stay on board and continue flushing out corruption in New York. And New York State is known to be among the most corrupt governance structures in the entire country. So Bharara, for once, seemed to be getting at the corruption at its root rather than just kind of going after the small fish, which is what we had seen in the past. And at the time of his firing or dismissal, again, the terminology here is sort of in question. Was it a firing? Was it a dismissal? Was it a resignation? I guess it's probably just semantic at this point, but preliminarily I'll refer to it as a firing. Prior to his firing, de Blasio had active investigations going on into Bill de Blasio and his associates for dubious fundraising practices. And the indication was that Bharara was moving close to a culmination in that case and was going to be determining soon whether or not charges would be brought. De Blasio himself had been interviewed recently, and then there's a pending case into associates of Andrew Cuomo who have been charged with felonies, including this guy Joe Percoco, who was basically Cuomo's body man and was one of the most integral figures in Cuomo's inner circle. So it wasn't as if the motive for dismissing Bharara could be chalked up just entirely to pure partisan motivation, because Bharara, at the time of his dismissal, was going after prominent Democrats. Also, I think it is worth noting that Bharara's office was overseeing an inquiry into whether the sex discrimination or the sexual misconduct allegations in Fox News were handled appropriately, and whether shareholders were properly notified. So that's another. I suppose it's possible that Roger Ailes could have placed a phone call to Trump and said, "Hey, we don't want this guy looking into our organization anymore." Although Roger Ailes, I think, no longer has a formal role at Fox News. The wrinkle is that Bharara was officially remained in his post until yesterday, when he was formally notified that he was being terminated. This all began with a phone call from Trump, prior to the broader directive being handed down by Sessions for requesting these resignations. So I'm on my phone now, as you could probably guess, so I can't easily put in all my citations into the description box, which I'm normally inclined to do. But all this information is drawn from the New York Times story that's on the homepage right now, so it should be easy to find. I think we'll be hearing a lot more about this going forward. There are a lot of questions to be raised. One question that I raised on Twitter a little while ago, and you can go find that on my personal feed at mtracy, and it's Tracy with an E, is, so if it was improper and if it violated ethics guidelines or protocols for Bharara to have accepted a phone call from Trump on Thursday, and it probably was correct for him to reject that phone call. That probably would have been a violation of protocol. But then why was it proper for Bharara to meet with Trump in November when Trump was president-elect? So what is the ethical distinction, or the ethics distinction, between meeting with a president-elect who is going to become, essentially your boss in a matter of weeks or months? What's the distinction between that and meeting with or taking a phone call from a sitting president? I'm not entirely sure. I'd love to hear that question answered. Does this mean now that in retrospect, the meeting that Bharara had in person with Trump and at Trump Tower in November was also improper? I don't know. I can only speculate, and as a journalist, I'm a little reluctant to speculate with any certitude without having the facts. But that's just something that came to mind for me. If anybody has any thoughts on that, I'd be happy to hear them. Otherwise, have a wonderful day.